Here we are, Julia. Welcome to
Amazing.
Cinema Life and Everything. We made it. How are you
We
doing
made
today?
it finally. I'm so good. I mean, the sun is shining, so honestly, can't complain on a day like this. It's shining here. Is it shining where you are?
It's fantastic
Okay.
today. Yeah. So I'm just
Amazing.
hoping it lasts because it's been, oh, we're talking about the weather, but it's
I
been like
know.
really sunny, and then what happens? You'll just get like a torrential
I know.
downpour, and it's like
Yeah, I
brilliant.
know. I'm waiting for snow. I'm waiting for the last snow of May and then it will be summer. So,
Then
yeah.
the summer can begin.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, rite of passage.
Right,
Oh,
before we get started and talking about your amazing, well, I was going to say free films, but you've bent the rules slightly, but someone
I
else,
know.
it's absolutely fine.
I had to push the envelope just a little bit. Yeah.
That's what life's about, pushing the envelope. But would you be okay just to tell the viewers or listeners and watchers a little
Yeah.
bit about yourself?
Absolutely. So I'm an actor, writer, producer, creative. I, gosh, it's so hard to talk about yourself, isn't it?
I know.
Um, I love storytelling. That to me is the basis. For me, it's the birth of human compassion. I think begins in storytelling. It is one of the oldest forms of communication, and I think it's one of the truest forms of real change. I don't think we've ever seen anything happen in the world where it didn't come from story. It didn't come from something that happened that you heard from someone that changed your perspective or your heart and made you want to do something differently or show up differently or even just see the world differently. So to me, that power is so immense. We don't even know the repercussions of our actions in the film industry quite yet because it's so new. And that's
Mm,
what I love about it. I love that we are in this, people say the golden age of cinema was like, 50 years ago when everybody was going, oh, technology, technology. But I think now that technology is so accessible, we can get to the root of it, which is why. Why tell stories? Why do you want to share this with the world? What is so important about it? And how is it going to affect you and ultimately, like, the entire world? How is your story going to affect it? I think that there's huge responsibility in that. So anything within that world I love. I'm doing a lot of script developing now, actually supporting other artists as well, with their own ideas and stuff, because I love working in that world of potential. I've got a background. So I went to Rose Bruford. I studied to be an actor here in London. I got my first job was on the West End in the comedy about a bank robbery. I got that job without an agent, with just, tons of tenacity and a lot of timing, like good luck and timing. Um, I come from an artistic background. So my parents are painters and singers, and my grandparents were the executive producers and co-founders of the Jim Henson Company. So I have a lot of, um,
yeah,
I guess, say like anecdotal. Is that the right word? I have a lot of like, I guess, sort of second generation experience of the
yeah.
practical side of the industry as well, which has allowed me to approach it in a more grounded way and not just like, I want to be a celebrity, because that will never happen if you go in with that mindset. But like, how do we actually change the world in this medium? That's how I approach it. Um, since my show closed during COVID, which I know a lot of us experience as real hardship, I ended up doing more film and TV, getting more into stunts because I've got a fire spinning background. I do free diving. I was the first professional mermaid in Bermuda,
Mm.
um, and yeah. So now I'm doing film and stunt work. I just finished a Netflix series in January. I've been doing stunts on some really fun shows for Amazon and Netflix the last few months. Um, and now I'm just auditioning like a crazy person,
Yeah.
like we all are, talking to myself into a camera in my living room. Kind of like now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before we go into the films, you've just hit so many interesting points there, but particularly about storytelling. Would you think, okay, so all storytelling is based on human emotion, human experience,
Mm,
shared human experience. Would
mm.
you feel that the way that has changed now as well has had a change on the way stories are being told? By that I mean going from just traditionally in an audience to now going to cinema, from cinema to streaming, from streaming to video games, and video games to VR, how all of these the timing of stories now, so from long form to all the way down to 15-second TikTok clips. Do you feel like that is altering the industry at all, the way that stories are being prepared?
Absolutely. I mean, it's for me, it's so fascinating. It's kind of blurring our concept of reality, like what is real, what is in the real world, and then what is real to us existing like in our consciousness, because our reality is just how we experience the world. I'm finding that the short form content is it's like so addictive for all the wrong reasons. It pulls you in, but I also feel that it kind of distracts you from truth, because like I guess you can get stuff across in 15 seconds, but what, like it's going to be our like base instincts, our base desires going like, oh, what's that? Oh, like it's a butt. Oh, somebody's dancing. Oh, somebody's, like bright colors, da da da. I think it's an interesting way to get somebody into, like the world you've created, but what kind of world can you create in 15 seconds? I think that's interesting. But on the other hand, video games, which are like, 60 plus hours of gameplay and storyline and character development. I mean, you just become totally immersed in that world, and can end up like really affecting you. I've played, I didn't realize that I was a gamer until 2020, when we bought our first PlayStation ever, because we weren't, allowed to go outside, and we were like, we need somewhere beautiful to play in our mind. So we got a PlayStation, and we got Horizon Zero Dawn, which is an amazing, amazing game. Pretty open world, great storyline, amazing, like, strong female character led. She's super cool. And playing through that game, like, so many hours of story. And by the end of it, you really care, like you're invested in the storyline. And I find it so interesting that we're not willing to watch more than like 20 or 30 seconds on TikTok, maybe like 3 minutes on YouTube, if you're on YouTube. But on Instagram, like it's so fast. And yet we're willing to sit down and play for like 60 hours on The Last of Us, and cry at the ending and be completely moved by, like, that storyline was, oh my gosh.
I think I made the mistake of playing The Last of Us Part 1, the downloadable content Left Behind, and The Last of Us Part 2, all back to back, without a break through lockdown. That was not
oh
a song.
My God. Wow.
Intense.
That sounds really intense. Yeah.
One other thing I was just going to ask as well is, so with the I don't know if you agree with this, but I'd love to get your perspective on it, that you can have a short form, a long form, but it's about the questions it raises and whether you question it afterwards. I think some of the shorter form stuff is, like you say, is like just someone dancing or a quick comment, and you're like, huh, on to the next one, but there's no thought about afterwards. In fact, you've forgotten about it by the time you watch the next one. And I think for me, that's the danger with art. Art should always be about questioning yourself and others, and your environment. Whereas if it's just something that's a quick hit and a mental McDonald's, then where is it sort of going to?
Well, even like, I wasn't really aware of this, but my younger siblings, my husband's younger siblings, are on TikTok all the time. And they were talking about like TikTok therapy, where people are posting like breakdowns of different personalities. Also like, oh, if you do this, 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 and this, then you should get tested for ADHD, or these are the signs of depression. Or that's where I feel like short form content can be more dangerous than helpful. I think opening up a conversation around any topic, like it's hard to do that and hold space for nuance if you're trying to get your point across in 20 seconds.
Very much so,
it becomes like little sound bites, like little Instagrammable quotes of, you know, this is what environmentalism looks like, or this is what feminism is, or this is what
Yes.
anti-feminism is. You know, it becomes more like statement and more fact than question and conversation. And that's what I really miss in the short form, and that's what I really enjoy about like the long form, you know, in gaming or in films and TV shows, is that hopefully you get the nuance of the situation, you get the nuance of the conversation. And like it can be, I think it can be a great platform to get, again, get information across the world in such an instant way. Like we know what's happening basically all the time, all around the world. And that is both incredible and exhausting.
Yeah.
But I think as long as we continue to question after we watch that 10-second video that tells us that we have like narcissistic tendencies, or, you know, after we watch the video where we're like, oh, that's what incels believe in. It's like, okay, yes. And, you know,
Yes.
let it be like, if that's your intro to the conversation, go deeper, you know, take more time. Don't take things at face value. So yeah, but
It
that's
can be.
work, you know,
Yeah.
and we don't
Yeah.
want to think about that when we're on TikTok. We want like entertainment. We want to just chill out and relax from, like, it's a really stressful time for a lot of people around the world. And we're both in the UK, right?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, we just had a coronation where they spent what, over 150 million pounds to crown a man who, you know, should there be kings anymore?
Mm,
That's a topic for another conversation. But you've got 40 million people starving in the UK, and that kind of dissonance is painful. People are suffering, things are getting more expensive, and we don't want to open our phones and be met with more stress, with more, you know, nuanced, detailed conversation. Like we want to watch a cat try and eat its own tail and be like,
mm,
oh, that's so cute, you know. We need a break. And that's why I think story can be that, you know, it can be that like step into fantasy, but then how can you be responsible in that world? You know,
completely.
how can you make sure that fantasy isn't just, yeah, I'm losing my words, but
No,
does that make sense?
I get exactly what you mean. In fact, the coronation was a wonderful piece of performance art for me, because you had people
It
desperately
absolutely
trying to
was.
be happy with torrential rain hitting them in the faces, and the coronation. I forget what it called. What was it called? The little thing he was getting carted along on was getting carted along on roads that were filled up full of sand. The holes in the road were filled up full of sands because there wasn't enough budget to repave the roads. And I was like, that says so much about austerity and the state of the country at the moment. It was it was
Just
very
don't look
emotional for the
down.
wrong reason. Yeah, exactly. It's like I was like, oh dear. But
Yeah.
anyway, talking about long form content, and I'm going to do a terrible segue as I'm getting really good at now.
I'm ready. I'm ready.
Let's talk about your two films and such a good TV series. I couldn't not let you pick it, please.
Yes. Yeah.
So we have got what we got. What do you want to? So we've got. Do you want me to say, or would you like to say them?
Yeah, absolutely. Do I remember what I picked? A Knight's Tale,
Amazing.
100%. Yeah. Was it Gladiator, the
It
second
was.
one we
It was
chose?
Gladiator. It was the one you
Okay.
picked. And
And Xena Warrior
yeah,
Princess.
yeah, 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 yeah,
So,
amazing.
I mean, it's not a movie, but
Oh come on!
we
In
want
a way,
one.
yeah, it's the ultimate movie.
Yeah, exactly. The ultimate. It was, you know, like being in a video game for, you know, 60 plus hours. So,
It really was. So,
yeah.
would you like? What one would you like to start off with?
Um,
Tricky.
Tricky. Yeah, yeah. How about you pick, since you're hosting this? I'll
Oh,
make
thank
you
you.
do all the work.
Let's there's two. I mean, all three of them. I love all three of these things. So it's really hard to pick. I mean, actually, a lot of my life beliefs are based on this TV show, so let's just start with Xena, to be quite honest.
I love it.
It's true.
Oh my
It's
God.
true.
Listen, you only need, I think this is in the States, but you only need 50 people to start a religion. So if you wanted to start a Xena religion, you know, you could probably
really,
do that.
it was incredible. So yeah, I mean, I could. Why Xena?
I
Easiest
mean, why
question.
not Xena?
Yeah,
Honestly,
exactly.
I talked to so many women who grew up in that generation of like watching Xena Warrior Princess, and even talking to my husband growing up watching Xena Warrior Princess. Um, she was a character unlike any other at that time. She was so powerful, so humble, compassionate, badass, like just she was awesome. Like we wanted to be her, you know. There was nobody else we wanted to be, and she went on these incredible imaginative adventures, and the writing itself was very it was very cheesy, but it knew what it was. And so that made it like wholesome, and there were morality tales in there, and you know, and it worked it in that world of like, you know, Greek gods and goddesses, and the rivalries and the romances, and you know, the absolute ridiculous episodes where she like inhabits another person's body and dies and comes back to life, and like you believe all of it. Yeah, but the reason why I keep going back to her is because I haven't seen a character like Xena since then in the way that she was. And I haven't seen a show in the way that it was. Like, it was a spin-off, you
Yes, this
know,
is the thing
how,
as well.
and it was so much better than the original,
Hercules.
than
Yeah.
Hercules. Like, I don't know how they created it, and I know that they've been trying to reboot Xena for years, and it hasn't worked. They haven't been able to find a way to adapt the script. They've been trying to approach it in a dramatic way as well, to make it more like adult and gritty, and I think that's why they're failing,
Yeah.
because it's not that. And yeah, like if you want that, just do something else, you know. That I feel like that's kind of what they were doing with Wonder Woman. um, but yeah, I love her so much because she is the kind of character that I aspire to play as an actor. She's, you know, first of all, it's super physical, which I
Yeah.
love. Um, and of course, the storylines are, you know, again, like you just get to play. And I think as actors, we crave that, you know, at the end of the day, like play, be imaginative. Um, but she was like a fully rounded character who had love in her life, but didn't necessarily, like, she didn't need it to be who she was. And I'm always at a loss for words, because it makes me so sad when I think of films and shows that are coming out today where somehow I feel like we've regressed since hitting the 2000s with women characters, where, you know, sure, you've got like badasses who are strong and sexy and da da da, and I mean, don't get me wrong, Xena is like super sexy and beautiful. And my husband was like, "Yeah, I wanted to marry Xena, and you remind me of her." And I was like, "Yes!" So that, you know, I'm happy with that. But okay, Wonder Woman, for example. Wonder Woman to me felt like, how do I explain it? Like a faux feminist film. It felt like she was hitting all the markers of strong, independent woman, you know, super powerful, beautiful. It still pisses me off that, you know, like superheroes in these movies, all the guys are jacked. Like
Yeah.
they are so buff. And you believe it when Thor picks up his hammer with his, you know, bicep that's bigger than my head. You're like, yeah, that guy is a god. He's a
Yeah.
strong dude. But then the women that they cast for these female superheroes, it goes back to like, you know, the 50s comics books when they were being drawn as essentially like pornographic characters.
Yes.
Now in today's world, like I would have loved to see somebody play Wonder Woman, who was built like, you
Jack.
know, like a CrossFit woman. You know, those women are jacked, and you look at them and you go, holy crap.
Yeah.
Like, I believe you are a powerful woman. And I personally feel like that was a missed opportunity, but she doesn't look like that in the comics. You know, she still is like, you know, very small and petite, and again, nothing wrong with that. It's where's the body diversity in that, you know? Like, I feel that men get to, in these superhero films, they get to have that body diversity until they become a superhero, and then they're super jacked. You know, they all get really, really ripped, and the women don't. But that's just personal preference.
No,
But
it's a good point.
yeah, but coming back to who she was in the film, this is still based on a comic book character who was created at a time when, you know, this is post-war, um, and this married couple, they wanted to make a character who was empowered, you know,
Yeah.
and this is what empowerment looked like in the 50s and the 60s. And that's amazing. What they did with Wonder Woman was incredible at that time. And now, in our time, she feels like she doesn't quite fit
Mm.
how we have evolved and how we are still evolving as women on screen. Um, but with Xena, like, Xena had it all. I have nothing to say about, you know, about the way that they wrote her, about the way that she was. I mean, Lucy Lawless was like, what, their 10th choice or something, and
Yeah.
now, like, nobody else could play her.
Yeah.
She was Xena
The
in a way that,
physicality she brought.
oh my gosh, yeah, incredible, incredible. um yeah, and yeah, I mean, I could just go on
No,
and on. I
I've
love her
got you.
so much.
You've raised a couple of really good points there already. Would you say that maybe now, because they are trying to find that new female superhero role model, whatever you want to call it, they're almost putting the cart before the horse, and they're
Mm,
ticking the boxes of what they need before they've created a truly representational character, or a character that's really motivating and inspiring. I think about Buffy, I think about
mm,
Princess Leia, I think about these
mm.
characters that were female, but they were just really interesting characters. I mean, there were a few points in Wonder Woman, you know, I am no man as she storms over the front line. I'm like, well, that was badass. But as
Mm-hmm.
a fully realized character with strengths and weaknesses, that doesn't really seem to happen. It's almost like they're maxing out all of the, like
Yes.
like, I think very much of Rey Skywalker as well, that started the first film
Yes.
as a complete badass, needed no real training in how to use a lightsaber, was kicking Luke Skywalker's ass within a minute, and then
Yes.
didn't really go, like they're almost frightened to show vulnerability at the
Yes.
moment, like it would
Absolutely.
yeah.
And it's been like this for ages. It's the oh my gosh, there's even a word for it. It's a oh boy, I'm sure whoever's watching this is going to be like, it's this thing. um Basically, when you overpower a woman character, she becomes a badly written character, and nobody likes her. And
Interesting.
then she fails. And then you look at that and you go, and that's why women can't be superheroes, because they're just not believable. But what we don't get with them, which is exactly what you're saying, is the struggle. We want to see the struggle. Like, it, for example, Captain America.
This is the
He's,
hero's
you know,
journey.
he's this, it's 100% the hero's journey. And he has to sacrifice something in order to, you know, save the world. Like, he's got this, you know, innocent, well, I mean, again, that was written during like post-war times, so it's reflective of that time, but he wanted to serve his country, and in doing so, like, he suffered, he
Mm.
lost his friendships, he lost the love of his life, like, he lost things. And when you meet him in that struggle, when you see the before and after, like any person, you care about them. But when you watch something like, oh boy, I can't even remember what it's called, Captain America with Brie Larson, I think she's a great actress.
Captain
No,
Marvel.
Captain Marvel.
Yeah, I'd
Thank
say,
you.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah, yeah.
Captain Marvel. Um, what is it like? Something like a spaceship falls on her head, and
And
then
she,
she
yeah,
becomes
becomes
like
super.
one of the most powerful beings in the universe multiverse. I don't care. And I
Mm,
desperately want to, because she's a woman on screen, she's a superhero on screen. Like, I want to support that journey, but we don't get it with Wonder Woman. We didn't get it. And
mm,
it doesn't feel like they've earned their powers, even like with Star-Lord, we see him, he's competent and whatnot, but he needs a family, and that's what he finds. And so you get to see his journey into like finding a family, and that's what we care about. With Iron Man, he's a total dick in the beginning, and then he suffers, he almost dies because of his own creation, and he has to find a way out, and again mentally
yeah.
like grow. And sure, he's still a bit of a dick, but now he's experienced consequences. And so he excuse me, so he changes, and he
Don't get
moves
me.
and evolves.
Yeah, no, don't get me started on Guardians of the Galaxy. I went to see Volume 3 the other day, and I don't think
Oh
I've
my
cried
gosh.
so much, you know. Be prepared.
Oh, I saw it.
Oh, you
We
see?
went and saw it a few days ago.
Oh, I love otters
I
too.
wasn't
So
ready.
I
I
wasn't
needed a
ready.
warning. Yeah, it was. And
But
there were these two like little kids sitting next to me as well. And the
oh
whole
my
movie, I was
God.
looking at them being like, do their parents understand? Like, yeah, the mom and me came out, and I was like, children, close your eyes.
The bit when the oh, I can't do spoilers, but a bit
No,
when
no
someone's
spoilers, but
face is
oh
revealed,
God.
and I was a bit like, kids shouldn't see that. But I'm sorry, getting back onto Xena. I know
Yes, yeah,
we're jumping
exactly.
around,
Yeah.
but they make a really good thing with Xena as well by having the character of Gabrielle in there as well. So when
Yeah.
Xena is super powered, there's
Yeah.
always that threat that
Yeah.
she's responsible for Gabrielle, something that they do quite a lot in the Matrix with Neo and his friends, because and it's that understanding of power, that even though you're going to be fine, you're responsible for the people around you. And
Yeah.
also Gabrielle had the human voice, so where Xena was sometimes a little bit in her arrogance, Gabrielle was
Yeah.
always there to bring her down and teach her those important episodic lessons, which
Absolutely.
I loved.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
laughed, it never, like the new Dungeons and Dragons film, it you laughed along with it, you didn't laugh at it. And I
Yeah.
think that's the thing that's happening too much now. They're laughing at the source material and the lore of stuff in a lot of current films, whereas you need to
Right.
be you're cheapening it, cheapening the emotional beats, whereas in Xena it
Mm.
just added to it because
Mm.
you're literally along with them for the ride.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, I love cheese. Like, I love
Yeah.
cheesiness, and it works if it's truthful. And I
Yes.
feel like Xena was really, it was truthful. It was silly, and it didn't try to be like smarter or like, snarky. It was truthful in such a big imaginative way, that you wanted it to continue.
Okay, spoiler to anyone who hasn't watched it, go and watch it. It's really cheap on Amazon Prime, or you can buy the DVDs. Did it?
Yeah,
I bought the DVDs.
absolutely.
What did
Yeah.
you think of the ending? Because this is my sort of life story sort of deal here.
Your life story.
Well, it's one of my life lessons. What I always feel
Oh,
about, like,
right.
how in that final battle, when the forces are too much against you, what do you do? What do you do in that?
Right.
And that really, I mean, it's a bit like I'm always impressed by a show that has the courage to end it like that.
Yeah.
But for me, it was sort of like in that final moment, she showed that she was this just complete warrior and badass as well. And
Yeah.
also, we got to see Xena in this sort of half samurai get up. With considering I've got a samurai tattooed on my back, I
Oh
was
my
like,
gosh.
if I'd seen that when I was having my tattoo done, I would have got that tattooed on my back, because that was just one of the most iconic things I've ever seen.
Yeah. So what I love about it is that in the end, like she how many times does she come back from the dead? Multiple times.
Yeah, a few.
She can't die,
Yeah.
right? And the choice that she makes in the end to stay dead so that these souls are free is is to me what is missing in all of these superhero films,
Yes.
is the accountability of uh, murder,
Yeah.
essentially.
Really.
Like,
Yeah.
if you are somebody who is protecting the world by killing other bad people. You yourself are responsible for your actions. You know, even if it was a bad person that you may have taken off of the earth, you still killed someone, and you are still, you know, an active point of violence in the world. Whether or not you choose your violence like for good or for evil, I'm sure if you talk to, like, you know, all the bad guys in the superhero films, they don't consider themselves bad. So that to me is all perspective. What I liked about that choice is that she has to, in order to live with herself, she has to die. In order to hold herself responsible for the thing that has, you know, spurred her on this journey from the very beginning, she has to stay there. And the fact that she chooses to shows like emotional growth, and it shows an ultimate responsibility. The only thing about it,
Go on.
it's not the sequence. It's the fact that we meet her after, in the very beginning, we meet her after this event has happened to her in her life. And what I would have loved to see, what I would have loved is for us to have been able to connect with the pain and the guilt of that experience that spurred her entire journey, so that we could feel the payoff in the very end when she decides to stay.
Yes.
When she decides to stay dead. That's the only thing. And that's just like a little nitpicky story thing where, you know, I want to go on that journey with her. You know, I want to feel the gravity of that choice. Otherwise, it just becomes another choice that Xena makes because, you know, she's smart and she's grown with Gabrielle, and you know, and it's the big finale, so they got to do something big. But that was the only thing. I hope it's okay that I said that.
No, I think that's I think you hit it note perfect there, to be quite honest. I was just always impressed when I was watching it, and I watched a few episodes before starting this today. Just as you go through the seasons, it started off, I mean, it was so, like, the writing and the acting, every direction was so good that they maintained the lightness of touch, but at the same time it was dealing with some really heavy issues, but they didn't have to like bang you over the head with it, and it was like a real
throat, or
exactly. It was, anyone who hasn't seen it, they really don't make them like they used to, and that
they really don't.
It's just incredible.
I mean, like, the practical effects, you know, it's sure, like, there's some CGI stuff in there where you're like, woohoo, but it all adds to the charm, you know. But, you know, there were so many practical effects. They had so many, like, local actors in New Zealand as well. You really felt like, you know, they had their community there, and
it was like a precursor to Lord of the Rings. They really sort of set up the thing that this is a place to go and feel fantasy epics. So much to be thankful for, like Hercules and Xena, but more Xena, because Xena was better. I'm sorry, that's inarguable.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so from Xena, these are, I don't even know where to go here, but I have to thank you, because it's one of those films that I watched in the past and I loved it, but then I'd forgotten how much I loved it, and I got the extended cut and watched the extra scenes in it. I was like, don't remember that, and it made it even better. So the absolutely astonishing The Knight's Tale. It's just like but again, talking about comedy but serious, lightness of touch, nuanced characters. I'm going to completely destroy her name, but Shannon Sonnerson, I believe, who's one of my all-time favorite actresses. She does this lip bite thing when she smiles, which is incredible. And go for it.
I love that that's the thing that you remember. See, actors' choices, it makes a difference. Yeah.
Oh, Heath Ledger's just like,
honestly, Heath Ledger in this movie and Robin Hood, Foxy Robin Hood, Disney's Robin Hood, were my only two crushes. Just those two. Yeah.
Have you seen I Am Heath Ledger, by the way, the documentary of his life?
I haven't. I really struggle watching documentaries like that.
Yeah, it's quite a sad one to watch, but just how
Yeah.
he used to film himself everywhere and film his facial reactions, and you can see how that's played into this film as well, how he does certain film
Okay.
like face choices and stuff. But sorry, anyway, going back onto the Night's
Interesting.
Tale.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll have a look. I'll
Yeah.
see how much I can get through it. Yeah. Oh my God. I'm so glad that you watched it again. Every time I watch it, I cry and I go like, where are these movies
Yes.
now? Where are, like, what happened? Genuinely, is it because we don't spend enough time on the material? Is it because like we're leaning on visual effects to make up for the lack of
Mm,
storytelling? Is it because like I don't I genuinely don't know. That movie to me, again, you know, I'm seeing a theme in my choices. Wholesome,
yeah.
so clear. It's a father and son story. I mean, my God, it's all about like finding your place in the world, and not only finding it but fighting for it,
And
and
dreaming big.
dreaming big,
Yeah.
and finding people who are going to also go on your crazy journey, and oh my gosh, Chaucer, like what
Oh
an
yeah, Paul Bettany. Yeah.
astonishing actor. I mean, he honestly, that's one of his best roles, and one of my favorite moments of the film. Spoiler, it's not really a spoiler if anybody hasn't seen it. um, did you know that in one of the scenes, where were they filming? They were filming somewhere in Europe,
Hmm.
and they had a bunch of local extras
Yeah.
in one of the jousting tournament scenes,
Oh, it's brilliant. Yeah.
and they none of them spoke English. And so Paul got up and he did his big rousing speech and da 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 da, ended absolute silence because nobody knew that was the end of the speech because they didn't speak English. And so Paul just went, yeah, and everybody went, yeah, and they kept that in the film. But
It's
it was
amazing.
completely improvised because, of course, you know,
They
they
didn't
had
notice
all
that
their
as a
local
point of
extras.
view.
Yeah, so good. I love moments like that in film. That is, you know, the magic and synergy of people working together and finding new things in the moment. Um, yeah, I love that movie for so many reasons. Again, like the practical effects, the stunts,
Amazing.
and it was so much fun. Everything that they did around it, it was kind of, you know, like a rock fairy tale, you know,
Yes.
with their kind of with like the dance that they did, and um and what I loved about it is that, again, because it's rooted in a story that we are invested in, they can be silly with it, you know, and they can be big with it, and we'll believe it and it will move us. um and that relationship between father and son, like what parents sacrifice for their children, and what it looked like in those days, and then what children sacrifice as well, like to not be with their parent and how it
Yes.
affects them, and what they really want in life. Like,
Sorry to interrupt, but there was a
no,
thing that
please,
I
please.
mean, everybody takes different parts from the film, but I don't know, the relationship between oh God, well, I've forgotten her name. But Heath and Shannon's character, where he was a bit of an arse, a bit into at points. He was like a bit like that idea of the masculine, and it's like I'm always right and I'm
Mm,
strong. And she said, if you love me, you're going to have to lose. So
yes,
again, and I just thought that was again, you're not
yes,
hammering it home, but you're just making this point of like love is sacrifice, love is
yes,
compromise, and also
yes,
the death of his ego. The only way
yes.
he could identify himself was to always be the conqueror, and everyone will love me because I never lose. And it's like, no, you have to lose to understand the value in losing. You learn something about yourself, and I was
Mm,
like, amazing.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. It's like what was so moving in Good Will Hunting. Um, you know how well, gosh, so many spoilers.
That's why should watch films.
But he he's, you know, this incredible like genius whiz kid who could go off and work for the CIA and work for the government and work for blah blah blah, work for a tech company. And at the end of the day, Robin Williams' character in that film is really there to teach him the true value of life, which is
Mm,
love. which is connection. And that's what he chooses at the end of the film. And that will never not be moving. That is like an eternal human experience.
Do you have a
Told in
favorite
many different
scene?
ways.
Do
What
you
was
have a
that?
favorite scene? Do you have a favorite scene in A Knight's Tale at all?
Um,
Tricky, I know.
oh my gosh. I love Naked Chaucer. I just think
Yeah.
it's absolutely brilliant acting. Um, I love the blacksmith's character. Like she just
Oh,
is living in her own world, you know, like again, a great example of a woman who comes to join an ensemble, but you know exactly who she is. She has an entire life before they showed up, and
yes.
she chooses to join them because her work will make them better, and she will also be able to, you know, like benefit from this relationship. They're all people who are trying to dream bigger together,
Yes.
and they all have to help each other in that, and you know, learn the true value of life. um oh, I love all of them. I love all the scenes.
I even love the bad guy. I think Rufus Sewell is
Oh my god.
so. This is another thing. There are no. I don't know. Apart from the High Evolutionary out of Guardians of the Galaxy the other day, instant one of the worst bad guys ever known. But there doesn't seem to be any fully realised bad guys that you can actively hate anymore. But I
Right.
think in The Knight's Tale, he was nuanced. You could see why
He
he was the way he
absolutely
was,
was.
but he was
Yes.
still played with such a plum. And I was like, I don't
Yes.
like you.
Yeah. And I feel like that's why we didn't like him, because we could see why he was being the way he was. And it was gross, you know, like
Yes.
we were looking at that going, oh, don't be that guy. Yeah.
I think
Such
I
human
think
characters.
I think two of the things we've hit upon already, and if you agree with this, that you just mentioned it as well with the blacksmith's character, that everybody felt fully developed. They had a life before the film began. They'll have or the TV show began. They'll have a life afterwards. Well, most of the characters, and everything felt real. It wasn't just trying to get a message across, or just being a cipher, or just being someone to tell
Yeah.
you about plot
Or being like
exposition.
a sequel, like a prequel to another film, or being like a placeholder for 7 other films that are going to be
Yes.
made. Or, you know, I feel like sometimes movies now, especially in, well, we keep going back to like the Marvel world, but
Mm.
some of those films feel like big trailers for other
Yes.
films, you know?
How much drama and how much can you raise the stakes, and how much character development can you show in a single film? If, like you say, there's going to be a chain of 7 films, it
Mm,
becomes a lot harder. When they made Iron Man, for instance,
mm,
they didn't know that was launching the whole of the Marvel universe. So that's why that still remains for me one of the best films, because Robert Downey
mm,
Jr. was able to show a complete character arc in that film
right,
because they didn't know.
right. Yeah, good
Interesting.
point.
That's what I think anyway. So I guess we have to get on to another one of my absolute favorite films with so much growling.
Oh my gosh, so much.
Gladiator.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody hasn't watched this film, like I would be shocked. Um, it honestly, it's to me one of the best films ever made.
Yes.
Um, the acting is phenomenal, but again, the storyline is so clear, and it's another like universal human message that we can all relate to, which centers around love and loss, and again, purpose, you know.
Yes.
Excuse me. Why does he fight when he's lost everything, you know? Why why does he go back into that world? And and one of my favorite moments, two of my favorite moments, just visually, him walking through the field of barley, to me is like it's I don't know how to even like describe it. To me, that otherworldliness of peace and completion and wholeness, like the yearning that came through that visually,
Yes.
that's what filmmaking is about, you know.
Yes.
That shot is, it moves me so much that even now when I think about it, like that could
It's
bring me
getting
to
me as
tears.
well. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because of, you know, everything that's been built around it is so strong and so solid. And of course, the other moment is the iconic, like, are you not entertained? And what I find so interesting is when I hear, not everyone, but when I talk about this film with others, and I hear some guys, mostly guys, repeat that line, being like, "Are you not entertained?" Like, as something that's like big and powerful, and him sort of going like a big fu to the arena, and like being aggressive and standing his ground. But in the movie, what I love about that moment is that it's a real question, and it's also like it's a pointed question of, again, why.
Yes.
It's not like, was that good enough for you? It was, are you not entertained? Is this your life?
Yes.
Is this how you value other people that you view lesser than you? Do you think that this is okay? How does that reflect on you and your humanity? That's what I got from it, which um, may or may not be right, but that's my interpretation of that. Is it really was like just such a spiritual journey in so many ways for all of those gladiators in that space, like having something to die for, and choosing to die, and then choosing to fight.
Do you think as well that, I'm so glad you, because I was going to actually, one of the notes I made on here about are you not entertained? Because I always love in any form of art something that subverts the role of the audience. So when you're in a film, you're sitting there, it's like, oh, you're going to entertain me now. I'm watching a film. And it always asking the crowd in the film, but it's also making a point of, how much this man has suffered, and yet he's still forcing to carry on fighting for your entertainment while you're watching the film as well. And I like that sort of double
Yeah.
meaning to it as well.
Yeah, and really questioning like senseless violence. What I loved about that movie is that I didn't experience any of the violence in that film as just gratuitous violence. To me, it served the story, which again is intentional storytelling. It's what we were talking about,
Yes.
in the very beginning. It's making that conscious choice of, and you and I, like, we both have our background in stunts and in fighting and on, like, you're wrestling
Mm.
and and it if it doesn't serve the story, then what is it there for? You know?
Yes.
And if it is just there to be senseless violence, then how is that impacting us, the viewers, and ultimately, the world? When I think of like the John Wick films are, super violent in that way. But what we love about it is the attention to detail. We love, I feel like almost more than the actual film, the making of the film,
Yes, seeing how
and
Keanu
the
Reeves is learning it.
commitment,
Yeah.
the dedication. And it really is just watching a bunch of people who are like, let's make an amazing movie, make a movie. And we all go like, yeah, they made the movie. But that violence, like, it serves no purpose. And so after a while, for me at least, it feels a bit empty.
Yes.
Um, and yeah.
Don't you think this ties back into what you said earlier on with Xena about the weight of um the murders, and actually
Yeah.
having if a film or a TV show can actually bring across the fact that these aren't just faceless characters that are just there as sort of
Yeah.
sword fodder, that they're actually they have lives, and there
Yeah.
is a weight of responsibility every time you kill someone.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Where's that responsibility?
I also,
Yeah.
it's one other thing as well. I also wanted to, in between those two shows as well, or the TV show and the film, that ultimately the warrior's quest, and in a way like Heath Ledger's character as well, that you do battle, but at some point there is you need to lay down your sword. It's almost
Yeah.
like with a Viking thing. So
Yeah.
many of these fighting warrior clans, the samurai, the
Mm,
Vikings, they want to die in battle. So ultimately they make themselves obsolete. There needs to
mm,
be an end to it. The idea of just constantly fighting forever is actually bad, because you're only just going to, violence begets more violence. I think that's an
yeah.
important message as well.
Yeah. Absolutely. And then also to show how hard peace is.
Yes.
Peace is hard. it's not like everybody stops fighting and we go like, oh, now the easy stuff happens, you know. It's way easier to pick up a sword and, well, I mean, I'm sure it's difficult in its own way, but you can cut down a tree in 5 minutes, but it's going to take that tree 100 years to grow back. And you've
That's
got to,
such a good quote.
yeah, you can have that one for free. I'm sure somebody else has said it better than me as well. But it's just that, and I also feel that quote applies to film as well. Like when you put your movie out there, you're having an effect on the world in a way that you may not even be able to comprehend, and what do you want to change with your storytelling? What do you want to impart with your story choices? Like I'm very averse to most horror films because of like the violence against women. I just call it trauma pornography, to be honest. It's to me, nothing good comes out of it. And even if somebody argues like, oh, well, people need to know that women suffer and murder of women is terrible. Yes, it is. You don't need to show it on screen in a gratuitous way, where
Yes.
they also, have to somehow take their top off and then get murdered, But I do find the genre of horror to be interesting in a cathartic way. I think that there is room for that. But again, it comes down to the intention of the storytelling.
Yes.
And I think in the future we're going to see I think we're going to see more of how film actually impacts us, and the repercussions as well, because we're constantly learning and ingesting information, whether we choose to or not. If we have our phones on and we're scrolling through Instagram, we're taking in that information, and it's changing us consciously and unconsciously. So how can we be conscious in what then we bring into the world? Yeah, I think it's so important.
Do you think that this is something that needs to be sort of worked on more? That I just feel at the moment there's such a rush for content, scripts. There's so many stories of films being started with only the first third of the script being finished,
Yeah.
and they've already started to film. Do you think it is? I don't know how it would be done now, but take a breath, spend a bit more time, work on your intent, make sure that
Yeah.
script is fully realized, rather than just this rush to try and get more stuff
100%.
put through to be viewed.
Absolutely. I think I think there are a few parts to that. I think that in our search for content, these production companies, unless they're conscious of it, will often choose the same things over and over again because they know that it sells. So from a business perspective, we're not seeing much of a change in the narratives that we see, because they know that they can sell, the white protagonist man with like a slightly ethnically ambiguous woman on his arm, and then they, fight and do blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
That is changing with more, like with smaller distribution companies. And again, as it becomes more accessible, we are going to see more diverse filmmaking. It's already happening, just slowly. I feel if artists were financially supported in the development stage of a project, we would see that care so much more. Because at this point, as an actor, we don't get paid unless we're working. So, if you're in a situation where you cannot say no, you might end up doing a lot of like trauma porn horrors in order to pay your bill and also try and make your way into the industry. That's not a choice.
No.
If you're a writer and you want to, be intentional with your storytelling and take time to develop your script, if you're not getting paid for any of that work, then you're more likely to develop a script that a production company is going to pick up, a streaming service is going to pick up, and it may fall into, the more obvious choices that are being made now, with more gratuitous violence, more gratuitous, sex and objectification of women, and but more with like male protagonists and blah, blah, blah. So I feel like what we're missing is like an artist's incubation stage, where
Yes.
it's just, it's, to me, it's the most important part of the storytelling is the creation of the story.
100%.
And then you go and you take it into production and you find your cast, you find your crew, you turn it into a reality. But to me, artists need to be supported in that almost like gestation stage, so that they can actually choose what they want to bring into the world, so that they can develop their unique voice as well. I think in that way, we will get much more varied storytelling. And I think that we will get more intentional storytelling. It's just, you've got to invest in it.
Yeah, that's the thing, the ephemerality of ideas, and it's only when they become concrete then you can start putting money. But you need, like you say, a time to be able to create those ideas where you're not going to just try and jump onto the bandwagon of something else. It's such a good point you make. And what can I say to that? You've Julia, it's been absolutely incredible. Thank you so much for your time.
Philip, thank you. It's been really fun.
No, it's been amazing.
Talking
I
your
just
ear
love
off.
listening to your ideas and stuff as well, and just your thoughts. And like I say, people listening, watching, if you haven't seen Xena, if you haven't seen The Knight's Tale, if you haven't seen Gladiator, what are you watching this on?
Yeah.
I think everyone should have done, really. But yeah, go and watch them. They're great choices. Is there anywhere where people can follow you, or you'd like people to check out?
Yeah.
No,
I'm on Instagram as Julia Frith. You can come on and ask me any questions about art, about film, storytelling. That's a great way to get in touch as well. If you do have a project and you want some feedback, I offer like dramaturgy sessions or script analysis sessions. Obviously, if you need an actor as well, any kind of Xena stuff, like, well. Yeah, but just Instagram.
Especially if Xena 2 is getting cast anytime soon. If anyone sees
Well,
it.
if it doesn't get made, then I will make it. I'll find
yes.
it.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, thank you so much. And listen,
Oh, Philip,
yourself
thank you.
day, and yeah, take care of yourself. I'll see you on set soon.
All right. See you soon.
Thanks. Bye now.